Force Radio presents.
Last night, a Jedi was murdered.
She's killing Jedi.
I didn't do it! Believe me!
She was my student. I trained her. Now she is a student of the dark side.
This is a fight that you will not win.
The Jedi live in a dream, but an acolyte kills the dream.
This is Rebel Force Radio's The Acolyte After Show.
Oh, the Wookiee was cool. I like that. I like the Wookiee fight. I liked all the fighting. Like Saw and Mother Coral. She was yelling a lot in this show. Run! Fight me! Oh. Poor Anastasia, she had to listen to that all the time. Man. Well, let's start with the good. Like I said, I thought the fights were cool. And this show may be softening my stance on Wookiee Jedi. Because Kelnaka's the only badass in the show. Everybody else, they're wimps. They're crying. I've just had it. I've had it with these wimpy Jedi in this show, except for Kelnaka. And he was under the influence of dark magic, black magic. Anyway, it's great to be with you all here on the Rebel Force Radio Acolyte After Show. Thanks for hanging with us. We got so much to discuss here as we talk about Episode 7. Only one more episode to go after this. How are they going to wrap it all up? I don't know. This episode, we were expecting it. It's the other side of the flashback that we saw in Episode 3. And we even got the same director. So we'll get into all of those details here in the next couple of hours. So strap in. We are about to go deep here in the Acolyte. If you're new to the program, welcome. Introductions may be in order. If so, my name is Jason. And with me, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Okay, final thoughts for Episode 7 Choice. Hit the music. Because Jason, you did drop a lot at the beginning, and I can't even look through. You see the forest through the trees to even comment on a single thing you said. However, you did surprise me by opening with positive things to say about a Wookiee Jedi.
Yeah.
Wow, Jason, you've changed, but it's okay. It's okay. Because you're with me, I'm with you. Always born, one is whatever the hell there's.
Well, wait a minute. I should have said, hold on. I missed something when I was talking about the good. I always wondered what it would be like to have a pop song during the credits of a Star Wars. And we got to see that for the first time. The Power of Two, rocking the charts. I've got the lyrics. I was going to sing it, but the melody was just so not memorable. I can't even remember it.
There was a melody. They did this with the Willow series, where they ended the credit with the credits rolling. They would play a pop song, sometimes a cover, an updated cover of a well-known song, or something entirely new and nonsensical. Well, they're up to their old tricks again here with the Acolyte.
Well, we know what happened with Willow. Go look for it.
Okay, we do know what happened with Willow. And oddly, I didn't really feel, I felt like we moved beyond Willow, but yet this episode gave me hardcore Willow the series vibes throughout. And that is not a very positive thing to say, because I absolutely hate watched my way through Willow. And I'm not hate watching the Acolyte or anything. I'm just saying I got Willow vibes from this episode.
I'm not hate watching it either. There's a difference. I mean, coming out of it and having criticisms and complaints and issues is not hate watching it. It's a very different thing. I see someone on the chat saying, "Oh, classic Swank coming out with his trash takes right out of the gate."
Yeah.
Guys, I've been pretty restrained here, I think, over the course of the Acolyte After, but I have some real gripes about this episode, especially because they're so close to the end. I've been expecting more, but it's just, I don't know. I will say this. There is a payoff in this episode. They do pay off the mystery, the big mystery of why these Jedi have this tremendous guilt that is crushing them to the point one commits suicide, one stays in reclusion or seclusion. Indara, we don't really know what her status was at the beginning of that episode, other than she's hanging out in the bar.
Yeah.
So we don't even know if she was in any way estranged from the Jedi Order, like Torben and Kelnaka.
Well, Kelnaka was sent away by the Jedi Council.
But then he just went dark.
Right. Yeah, he cut himself off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could sniff.
He was ghosting the Jedi. Wasn't answering his texts.
He was force ghosting the Jedi. But it's I think we should just get in the tail of the tape.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that. We'll do that very.
Like I said, you threw a lot out there at the beginning, and I'm with that guy in the chat. I hate it when you drop all that stuff right at the beginning because it's like, oh, now we got to work our way through all.
Wait! I dropped two things. I gave it 2 compliments. I said I like them. I love.
You were too overwhelming. There's been times where you drop a lot at the beginning, and that really sort of establishes the pace for the rest of the review. And I don't know. I take that back. I don't think you did that this time because you're with me. I'm with you. Always one, born is two.
All right.
Above
Here's the tale of the tape.
Below lies the sea. Hey, let me finish my Teletubby song. I give you and you give me.
Is it Teletubbies or is it Barney?
Is it or I get them confused, I guess. They're both covered in giant felt costumes. And
all right, gang. We're talking about episode 7, of course, season 1. It took 3 people to write this, including Charmaine de Gratte, Jen Richards, and Jasmine Flournoy. 1 person to direct it, Koganada. Yeah, the man who brought you episode 3. Original air date for this, if you're listening to it into the future, July 9th, 2024, and just a little over 37 minutes, this particular episode. So, yeah, there's still plenty to talk about, guys. Don't worry. I didn't get through it in my 2 minutes opening the show. There's I got 36 pages of script here that we can go through. It was a very dialogue-heavy episode, actually. And I know that because I print out the transcripts and you can, tell by the number of pages. Some of the episodes have been actually pretty thin dialogue-wise, but this one was a heavy one. We start things back on Brendok and show a photo here. We got the away team with their tricorders out and they're... Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. This isn't Star Trek. Can I ask a simple question?
Sure.
A vergence in the Force is one of the most amplified Force phenomenons in the galaxy far, far away. Right? It is an amplification of the Force at many, many magnitudes. And I'm just out of the gate. I got to ask this because it drove me crazy. Why do they need to be analyzing rocks and analyzing plants through their machines for these Jedi to find the vergence? Aren't they attuned to that? Don't they have that hardwired?
Jason, you're talking like you're some kind of guy who's never gone out looking for a vergence before.
I'm a vergence virgin, okay? I'm
Don't you understand how this works? Have you ever gone out? Did you at least take a school field trip and go out?
I was sick that day. Sorry.
Oh, son of a gun. And how about Kelnaka? You thought that was a metal detector. It's a vergence detector. There's a lot of technology here involved in finding a vergence.
I'll tell you what, I'm leaving for the beach in a few days, and I've got one of these that I'm taking with me to look for abandoned jewelry.
Ooh, well, good luck with that. But yeah, the vergence thing. Soul says a vergence can create life like what they see on the planet. I don't
Yes.
think he's thinking that a vergence itself can be like a person. That's something that was specifically labeled with Anakin. Qui-Gon Jinn reported a vergence upon meeting Anakin, and Yoda's like, a virgin
A
around
virgins,
this
you
boy?
say?
Yeah, around this boy. And it's like, yeah. And so I think that's different. For these guys, when they look for a vergence, they're looking for it's like a concentration of force energy centered around a specific location, not necessarily a person. So they're looking for this concentration of force energy because I think traditionally that's where Jedi like to build their temples, is on these vergences in these locations. With Anakin, it was very different because the vergence was Anakin. And it's possible the vergence that these Jedi are sensing could be the twins themselves, but the narrative doesn't really add up to that, at least not right now.
But they're shoving grass and leaves and stuff into these machines, testing for a vergence.
Right. Well, that's yeah. Well, you can do that. You could plant your weed garden where a vergence is, and you're gonna get the best smoke you ever found. But well, that's weird. Okay, with them
Yes,
plucking.
just
But
meet
again,
me there, please. It's weird.
as I said, it's the vergence typically centers around a location.
Right.
So they obviously have some sort of technology that can sort of measure a vergence based on soil samples or plants or whatever that these Jedi get, maybe it's their way of proving a vergence is there. I'm not really sure, but they do say the vergence can create life like what they see on the planet. And they thought the planet was toast because of the big hyperspace incident that happens in the High Republic novels.
Right. Okay,
yes.
I'm going to buy this answer here. On the chat here, we got Gonzi Merchant.
Yes.
Says, because they said the planet was previously lifeless because, as you mentioned, the hyperspace accident. So they are testing the plants and the animals to see what they are and why they are growing. And Gonzi's onto something here because there is a line where Indara says to Saul that they don't know that the vergence is what caused the planet to be the only one in the system that has life on it. So I'm gonna go with that. I think Gonzi has answered this for me.
Okay,
They're not
good.
looking for the vergence through testing the soil. They're testing the soil and the plants and all of that to see if the vergence might be responsible for their growth. It's the best answer I've heard.
When Torben was tossing those samples into that device, the device looked very similar to what Beru was using in her kitchen when she was making that meal in A New Hope. She was like dropping stuff into the Vegematic.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's Torben has got this thing.
Yeah, Torben. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also keep in
make
mind
that sound, that wing, 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 when Owen comes into the room. Yeah.
When we see Kelnaka in episode what was that, episode 4, and he's in that hut, or maybe it's at the beginning of episode, I don't remember, but he's in the hut and you're like, what is he doing with he's experimenting, he's taking all of the like this grass and he's putting it in a pot, and I thought he was just making dinner, but you might be onto something. He might have been hanging out there testing out this vergence and figuring out, grabbing these samples and trying to really establish if what he was feeling through the force is legitimate. So they have a way of testing particular sites and locations.
Yeah.
Taking soil
Good
samples.
callback to Kelnaka doing his stuff there with the plant life there on Kofar. So who knows? He might have been, as you pointed out, yes, he was sent by the council to Kofar. Maybe it was a similar mission in terms of, he had the gear. I still think that I guess his possession that we see in this episode might explain his obsession with the witch cult and why he might have had those symbols etched in his home. Right.
I we get a definitive
Grappling
answer.
with that.
Like he had discovered something on Kofar that tied back to Brendok. So maybe there was another force vergence on Kofar, and that's what he was researching. That's why he cut himself off from the Jedi. And it's something that connects back to Brendok. I don't know. I don't know. There's one episode left to explain all of this, or they'll just leave it out there vague.
Well, we should mention that not only is it unwise to upset a Wookiee, it is also unwise to insult a Wookiee's cooking. So if you're cooking Nuna, or if you see a Wookiee cooking Nuna, did you see this bird? It's a little bird thing.
Yeah,
and Torben is really tired of this, he says.
Oh, God. Could you imagine eating pigeon for like 17 weeks or whatever he was doing?
7.
The
guy's only been there for 7 weeks. Can we just say that Torben has absolutely zero patience for this kind of thing? I mean, he acts like he's been a prisoner for, months and months and years. His biggest problem is that he's homesick for
he's
Coruscant?
bored. More like, he's homesick. Torben is homesick. He is obviously too young to be out on this mission, I'm thinking. But he is fully trained as a Jedi. He has a saber and everything. And doesn't a Jedi Padawan live for this kind of thing? Being out on a mission out there in the galaxy somewhere?
I would
but
think
they were
so.
they were keeping him in the dark, so he didn't really understand what was motivating their research and everything like that, and that frustrated him. But the homesick thing, I mean, homesickness is something that we all can relate to, but does it make for great drama in the Star Wars universe?
Well, but it's the domino. It's like the first domino that falls in this whole, one of the first dominoes that falls, because it's his homesickness that Anastasia picks up on and then exploits to tempt him, I guess. And then all of a sudden he finds out, hey, the twins are they're the virgins. Hot damn, I found it. So mission over. I'm going to go get these twins so that I can go back to Coruscant. Like you, I just thought, oh my God, just a little bit more motivation here.
How about this?
Be great.
Some sort of backstory for Torben that explains exactly why he wants to get back to Coruscant. Give him a purpose. Give him a reason. Maybe there was something he left behind at Coruscant that he really needs to get back to. Give us anything. But just I just want to go back to Coruscant because I hate it out here and everything. That's not what I would expect from a fully trained Jedi.
Right.
And he's a Padawan. I mean, you guys, but he's still a Jedi. A Padawan is a Jedi Knight. He even says when Osha looks at his lightsaber in episode 3, when they take her in for testing, she goes, "Oh, wow, you got a lightsaber?" He's like, "Yeah, you can get one with much training." But, he makes it very clear he's been through the ringer as far as his training goes. And now he's out there in the field working with other Jedi. I expect more from Torben. I really do. And I will say this about Torben. I'm not 100% certain he killed himself over guilt, over what happens on Brendok. I think it's like once Mother Anastasia, Mother A, I'm going to call her from now on, Mother A gets into his head, I think that really ruins his hard wiring. I think it does a trick on him where he's absolutely haunted by that. You know, Yord said upon meeting Chimera, he gets in your head and stays there. So we might have seen Yord go through some sort of similar withdrawal and maybe go into some, you know, Barash vow meditation just to escape the darkness that possesses his mind. I feel the same way with Torben and Anastasia getting up into his head.
Okay, I'll buy that. I think that's okay.
It's just hard to live with.
It is. I am coming across as a little negative because this was the payoff.
I think the entire season was riding on this episode.
Yes,
I really do.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And I'm not willing to really give it a pass or fail report card right now, because we still do have that one more episode. And then we could go back and look at the whole thing and we'll notice, oh, there's a loose end there. There's a loose end there. This didn't pay off very well.
I'm not going to, I'm not seeing a lot of, well, there are some loose ends. It's that I can live with more, because when you're writing a series like this, you're probably hoping and anticipating for a second season. So you're going to leave some of that stuff open. What I think is challenging me here is that there was 6 episodes of buildup of what really, this must have been some serious stuff that happened. I mean, it does get serious. But when you strip down what they're guilty of, it's hard to find much fault with Torben. Torben was being completely manipulated. She got into his head, and what does he do? He goes to retrieve the twins, but he doesn't make it all the way. He's followed by Saul, who also wants to retrieve the twins, but for other reasons.
Yeah,
he wants a Padawan.
Mm.
Kelnaka, he's kind of in the same boat as Torben. He's a victim in this.
Yeah,
also possessed by not one but many witches.
Mm.
Indara is trying to warn them all to stay away from this situation, to not get involved. The council, she told us that we're all ready to involve. We cannot interfere. We got to step away from this. So really, the guy that's mostly responsible for all of this is Saul. Saul was obsessed or I don't know. He had some connection. He created some connection with Osha, or felt some connection with her. And I couldn't help but think, and I know we don't like to always talk about the Star Wars we didn't see. We got to talk about the Star Wars we saw, but I just wish that there would have been some backstory that Saul would have, met Osha in one of those, in the woods there, and would have struck up a conversation, and maybe she didn't quite know who he was, but he was really friendly to her. And maybe he would go back every day and see her for a couple of minutes and establish that there was a relationship that was built over some time, as opposed to having some kind of weird imprinting. He sees her for a couple of minutes and doesn't speak to her at all. And he's completely convinced that this is the Padawan that he's always meant to have. And we hear Indara say, well, that's why you don't have a Padawan.
Well, I mean, he covets having a Padawan in a very similar way that Chimera covets having an acolyte. I thought it was odd Indara was teasing Saul for not having a Padawan while she does.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jedi training Padawans are a bit of a status boost for the Jedi. And Indara was showing a display of pride. And I thought the Jedi always frowned upon exhibitions of pride in that matter. And I mean, it's just the series really reinforces the idea that the Jedi are not perfect. An imperfect Jedi might not exactly be what some fans want to see from this show, because we haven't revisited Jedi Knights when the Order existed. We haven't revisited them at all since 2005 in Revenge of the Sith. If you don't want to count Clone Wars, obviously, I'm talking specifically live action. And I think fans want to see Jedi like at the peak of their powers, doing the things that have always been traditionally associated with the Jedi Order. But we get imperfect Jedi in this show. And I don't have an issue with them introducing a human element to the mystical space wizards, but I think a lot of fans get intimidated or threatened by that. And it's not, I don't think it's really hitting the mark with people who have been explicitly desiring to see the Jedi at their height of power, and they get presented as very imperfect. I think that's almost a missed opportunity. Another missed opportunity is when Indara says, I'm going to have to alert the High Council, and you never see that interaction happen. Like they couldn't have given us a hologram Yoda, for Christ's sake. They couldn't have. No.
I think they're saving that for next week.
Maybe.
I think they're saving that for next week. Because it's going to be the return to Coruscant. That's what next week has got to be. Saul going back.
With May.
With May.
Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff, too. Got completely pushed to the side so we can have another full flashback episode. So,
by the way, for the record, the only Jedi that I want crying is Anakin. Because Anakin, now you talk about the weight of the world, he had that. And you can understand the emotional distress he was going through. But he was also being, terribly manipulated. He was being also, I think, being treated very poorly by the Jedi Council. And I mean, that's real pressure. That just, I don't know. Yes, they're imperfect. They're too imperfect for me. They're all too imperfect.
Well, I remember when that last James Bond film came out, No Time to Die, and Daniel Craig's eyes got watery. Something that broke inside a young Jason Swank when he witnessed that.
He cried in Casino Royale too.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
All right. But I know you don't like that, and I do want to say I understand that Jedi are fueled by compassion, so it almost seems like a few tears here and there are par for the course, really, if that's something that really drives them, their compassion for others.
But we haven't seen it before to any great degree. In fact, the Jedi of the prequels were extremely stoic, almost annoyingly so, because they came across as very robotic.
I'm basically going on just what Anakin said in Attack of the Clones to Padme about how the Jedi are fueled by compassion.
He was trying to get in her pants.
Form attachments. They're not supposed to, covet and things like that, but they are supposed to be compassionate. So, but you might be right. He was just trying to,
I do want to go back to this conversation that you mentioned about Indara and Saul about the Padawan, because I thought that was interesting. Because Torben, they're sitting around the campfire and talking about the virgin, or Torben's explaining why he's disgruntled. He says, I want to be doing something important or meaningful. Mm-hmm. And Indara says, we're looking for a vergence. What's a vergence? And Saul goes in and he starts explaining it. He really explains it. He really sells it. It's a power that should be studied, protected. Nothing could be more important to the Jedi. This is a noble mission. Mm-hmm. And then later you hear Indara sort of correct Saul on the way that he was talking to Torben, saying that I teach him to seek the answers for himself. Like, she wanted to just give him enough for him to connect how important the vergence was,
Right.
And that it was a noble mission, that it was all the not that Saul was wrong. It was that she didn't want to be spoon feeding him.
Yeah. Right.
She wanted him to learn it for himself, and he says, "You disagree. That's why I have a Padawan and you do not." And it is played as kind of a friendly little barb. You know, it's not it wasn't a nasty like na kind of thing, but it definitely establishes the fact that, okay, we've got a Jedi without a Padawan, and what's a Jedi without a Padawan?
And, you know, Saul is a guy, he's very different from a lot of Jedi because he really does wear his emotions on his sleeve. Like you said, prequel era Jedi were all stoic and buttoned down. And this guy lets it all hang out an awful lot. And I think Indara recognizes that. And she also recognizes the opportunity to mess with him in a fragile place. He covets the Padawan. He wants to share what he's learned. He wants to pass on what he's learned. And it just the slow pace of finding a Padawan is unsatisfying to him. It's like, why doesn't he have a Padawan then? Why doesn't he get assigned a Padawan like Yoda assigned Ahsoka to Anakin?
He's obviously not ready. Indara is telling us why in this dialogue that he's not ready.
Right.
Hey, I do want to shout out Connor Ferguson, just who's always on the live streams. He says, "Hey, all, can't stick around, but wanted to say hello from my honeymoon in Turks and
Turks and Caicos. I've been there.
RFR number one. Talk about dedication.
God,
Took a
that's
break
great.
from his honeymoon.
That's great. I went scuba diving in Turks and Caicos, and that was the most amazing turquoise water I've ever swam in my life. What a great place that is, Turks and Caicos.
Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Ferguson.
Yes, congrats. Yeah, let's have a drink in there.
Toast to Connor.
What do you have? What is that?
Oh, this is just Perrier. I've got good stuff over here. I had to start out. I didn't want FJ thinking that my take this week was from the booze. So that's how I lose credibility. Oh, FJ, just have another drink, Swank.
Oh, he did say that, didn't he? Yeah. He did say, in our Jedi Council thread, our private thread, which you guys wouldn't believe some of the stuff that's going down in that thread lately. And we will have FJ on. We will have Kyle on. Mm-hmm. They will all, break down their analysis of this show. But especially with Kyle, I wanted him to wait until the whole thing was complete because I want his analysis to be as complete.
Yeah. Couple things here that I was kind of surprised by the way that Saul describes, in episode 3, which was our previous flashback, you didn't really get a sense that the Jedi knew at all what they were dealing with the witches. You never really had a scene, because it was obviously now looking back from Osha's perspective. But here you have a scene where he calls it a force cult. I think they're witches, Night Sisters, that gets dropped. And then Indara, who's definitely the more worldly of all of the most knowledgeable, she thinks that this has to be wrong because Night Sisters don't raise younglings, let alone train them.
That made me think for a minute, and I think I have something to back that up. Is in the Darth Plagueis novel, Mother Talzin presents Plagueis with Darth Maul, an infant Darth Maul. And so that almost backs that up. She presents that to Plagueis, and she's just like brushes off. Oh, no big deal. I just gave him a baby, just to pacify him and give him someone to train and to get him off our backs. But I mean, a mother handing over an infant to a Sith Lord, that's not common. And so that's why I think the Plagueis novel really backs up what they say about the Night Sisters. They don't raise younglings. I thought that was really interesting. I love how Saul refers to the witches as a force cult as well.
Yeah. I think that's the first time we've ever heard that in Star Wars. Force cult. Or at least
they said Splinter Order.
Right.
Is how
that's
it's
right.
described in a previous episode. But this is Force cult.
Yeah.
And he's taking it up a notch. And I found it interesting when he was observing that training session from episode 3, but from afar, and we got to see it all again. It does look like, the mother's attacking the twins, and May is standing in front of Osha as if to protect her sister from the attack. So I think Soul's looking as like, these witches are abusing these children based on what he didn't understand, that it was just a typical training session that they go through. He felt like they were abusing and putting the kids in danger by having that Force tug of war with May. He didn't understand it.
Context matters, right? It's like it's like when Mr. Furley would always, hear something coming from Jack, Janet, and Chrissy's room. Anyway, it's just a big misunderstanding.
Yeah, Mr. Furley reference, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so he says to Indara, he runs back and he tells her what he saw. And he did pick up on the fact that they were preparing for a ceremony. His intel got them that. He says, I fear for the girl's safety. Just come with me and see what I've seen. That's all I ask.
Right.
And of course,
I think he was like, they're going to sacrifice these children to their god. He said they don't treat the girls like children.
Yeah, and right.
Safety thought they'd be endangered at that ascension ceremony, and if I'm Soul, I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna get there, and the kids will be laid out on some stone altar, and prepared to be beheaded or something to sacrifice them to the gods or some crazy.
I mean,
crap.
You can see we've got on the screen here. You can see what he's looking at. He's looking at a ritual of some sort or seance, and this is he's getting skeeved out by what he's seeing here.
Yeah,
they're standing over that big pit. You might have thought they were going to chuck those little girls into that pit and sacrifice them.
I was skeeved out when they broke in a song in episode 3.
At least we didn't have to hear this song, right?
Thank God we were spared. The power of the one, the power of the two, the power of many. Oh, come on. I really don't want to hear that again for the rest of my life. And I was really nervous about this episode because I didn't want to spend any more time with these witch broads anymore. I didn't want to see the terrible acting from those 2 twin children. And I am convinced that the Osha actress is way better than the May actress. I'm not saying she's a good actress. She's a kid. So I do cut her a little bit of slack, but I notice a difference between the quality of acting coming from those 2 kids. The May actress is really not as good as her sister. And I mean, that's just my take on it. And I don't want to see those children ever again. I really don't. I just don't want to see either of them. I don't want to see these witches anymore. However, I didn't bristle at this entire flashback episode. I didn't mind seeing things from different perspectives. It's not so much Rashomon as it is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern or Guildenstern or dead. The different perspectives of Shakespeare's Hamlet. That was a play that, I don't know, it was created like 50 years ago or 70 years ago or something. But it's just a different perspective of Shakespeare's play Hamlet. And this is kind of what I'm getting from this. Not so much Rashomon, because I think in Rashomon, when they'd have those flashbacks, it's like the characters themselves weren't really certain about what they saw or what they remember. In this, it feels like there's more certainty. And also you think you're seeing this whole episode from Soul's perspective or from the perspective of the Jedi. That's not true, because there are scenes where the Jedi are not present. So we get further fleshing out of the story, but it's not a straight up different perspective of all the events that went down.
That's a really good point. That's a real good point, because this whole episode is set up as if Saul is telling May the whole story from her bedside. She's tied up to the bed.
Well,
and
that's what we're led to believe. Yes.
Well, what else could it be?
Well, I mean, we never see him like launch into story. This is just based on how the last episode ended. We might start the next episode with Saul saying what he wants to say to May. I don't think he's telling her everything. Well, he did say he was going to tell her.
He's going to tell her everything.
And then he was going to turn himself into the Jedi Council.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's another,
another
thing where this is supposed to be from Saul's perspective, but you're right. They say they betray that by not having him in every scene, or even not even having the Jedi in every scene. There's a funny moment when Indara, I like that he's like, "Come with me, let me show you what I've seen." And they're just gonna go ring the doorbell and like show up. Yeah. So they can't find a way in, so they have Kelnaka sort of break into the elevator. I mean, I don't know what they thought was going to happen. So they break in, but as they're about to do it, she says he wants them to go Saul wants them all to go as a team. And Dara's like, it's 50 women and 2 children.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that because, I mean, that equals weakness. 50 women? Like, Saul, come on.
Ooh.
It's only 50 women and 2 children. Like, I really need. I don't know. It just struck me as kind of weird, And she's one woman.
Well, she seems to be the most arrogant of all the Jedi. Like, she really does have a bit of overconfidence, hubris, whatever you want to call it. She sort of represents those Jedi who think that the buck stops at their desk. They are the end all, be all, most powerful. And I think that sort of arrogance kind of leads them to be blinded by certain events that happen.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Well, one thing I want to clear up, because I was talking about the Jedi crying, and I was defending Anakin's crying. Saul's breakdown a couple episodes ago, brilliantly acted, I think, by the actor.
When he was on board the ship, and
he's on board the ship, and he pounded, and I forgave him of that. One, because he saw multiple people that he was insanely close to brutally murdered, But what was interesting was the way he like, it was almost, I hate to bring up the Trek, but it was almost Vulcan-like, where Spock would sometimes just let the steam out, and then pull it back in. Yeah. So I liked that. Like, he let himself have a moment, sucked it in, and went on. But I don't know, it was then all of a sudden, and that was special. And all of a sudden, like, Torben's crying tonight or this week, and he's being a whiner about, we've all hired those Gen Z employees that after a couple of days on the job, or you get the intern, like, this is hard. I want to go home. That's Torben to me.
I don't want people to think that you're specifically putting down Gen Z folks, I don't want, because millennials are the same damn way. So I don't want people to think that you're putting down an entire generation. I want to put down 2 generations.
Yeah. One of my favorites was, for every millennial mad at a boomer, there's a Gen Xer that is irritated with both of you.
That's right. Gen X. Gen X. Don't you see? We give this symbol. That's our symbol. Maybe that'll catch on. I don't know. Maybe we started something tonight.
Hey, we did learn. Wait, we learned something about Torben when Mother Anastasia goes into his head. We find out where he's from. He's from Bonadin.
Oh, that one got by me.
He's from Bonadin, and he is the son of paupers.
That all went by me.
Yeah, it was sort of like, how in like Lord of the Rings, they're like son of Mog or son of, everybody's known by like their lineage. So cool, she addresses him as Torben, Jedi Padawan, son of paupers from the planet Bonadin.
Bonadin. Where's Bonadin from? Oh my God, where we heard that name before? Look it
Bonaducci.
up. Leave Danny out of this. I guess. Dark Empire. Dark Empire.
Is that what it
included,
is?
Bonadin.
Hey, while Mac is looking that up, I want to remind you all that this is a call-in show, so 708-866-1737. We're going to throw the phone lines open up here. 708-866-1737 if you're within the sound of our voices here live. Give us a call. We'll get to your super chats here shortly, but we'd rather hear you. We'd rather hear your voice. Give us a call.
Yes.
So yeah, this possession scene, Jim, where she gets into his head, and this is, she leads. It's cool. I love the buildup to this. I think that's, again, for those of you that are so upset that I'm negative because there are moments of great buildup and great hype. This story has great bones. I've said that from the beginning. She says, "You are a strong and good Jedi. You are a strong and good Jedi. You have natural desires that you suppress. Tell me you're not." And I'm sitting there going, oh, he's going to say that he wants to be the most powerful Jedi, or, that there's real angst in there. And it's just, he wants to just go home. It just felt so flat, so empty to me.
He wants to go back to Coruscant, hang out with his buddies, play some video games, and just relax a little bit, maybe with a bag of Doritos. But so, yeah, I have to say, I did enjoy that sequence. When Torben was possessed by Mother A, and she gets his head and tempts him, and in a very flirtatious way.
Yes, I didn't know if they were going to kiss each other at one point.
And so she says, she gets him to, she tempts his desires. And I thought he was just going to grab her and say, hey, let's go to the penthouse suite, and I'll get a bottle of champagne and we'll just make a night of it. But no, he just says, I want to go home. I want to go home. Click your heels 3 times and say, there's no place like home, Torben. And you'll go back to Coruscant. He's wearing the ruby slippers and everything. But no, she feeds off his homesick anxieties, but also you notice she does pit him against Master Indara at that point, his master.
Oh yeah.
She pits him and says she can't give you what you want. I can give you what you want.
Right. Yes. And again, the buildup and the dialogue around his desire is so good, but they just didn't give me, for me, it didn't land. I thought that they could have given him a more interesting desire.
Yeah, or really get into his head and provide us with some sort of foundation for his desire to go back to Coruscant. I mean, right. I just needed something other than there's no place like home. I needed something other than that. And they didn't give that to us.
Agreed.
And that's a missed opportunity. You could have made Torben a very complex and interesting character. But instead, he's just some homesick young guy who's tired of working. He wants to go back home.
Yeah.
And chill and just chill with the Xbox. But no.
The Jedi Xbox.
I mean, come on, can't you picture him sitting there, playing video games?
Totally.
Yeah, that's what he wants to do.
And the effect is great. The witches, their force power, their I guess force powers, whatever, their magic. And isn't it magic with a K? Now, like when you see the subtitles, I remember this back from the Clone Wars.
Yes.
They talk about it, magic with a with a K.
They spelled it differently a few times. But from what I saw in the subtitles, it was just MAGIC. It was nothing really special. But Soul does fully say he believes the witches marked May.
Yes.
Gave her that brand on her forehead.
Mm-hmm.
They marked her with dark magic. the witches are tapping into the dark side of the Force from what Saul sees. And that's consistent with everything we've seen from the witches thus far. We've seen them motivated by fear. We've seen them motivated by anger. We've seen them use the Force in unnatural ways. This is all dark side stuff. And it's pretty obvious to me. But I don't know to what end.
Right.
Is it going to lead to the eventual discovery by Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious of how to create life? Because they're trying, the Sith Lords are trying to find the path to immortality.
Right.
And along the way, while they're messing with the midichlorians, they realize they can create life. I want to know how the quest for immortality and the ability to create life by tapping into the dark side of the Force, I want to understand how those two intersect.
I hope they do intersect.
Yeah,
they should. I don't know if they have the ambition to do it. That's the thing I'm worried about as we're getting into the 8th episode, because as necessary as it was to see both perspectives, or their version of both perspectives, I felt like in some ways we lost some valuable time, because frankly, I'm more interested in what's going on with Kamir and Osha than I am finding out about this cover up. Now, we predicted, I'm not saying we're geniuses, but we did talk about, we thought at the end of the day, the biggest crime here was going to be a cover up. And that seems to be what it is. It is a cover up, though we'll get into what happens between Saul and the twins. But yeah, Jim, when Saul points out the mark on May, doesn't see the mark on Osha, he jumps to the conclusion that means that she's resisted in some way being marked, and that now there's more sympathy he's creating in his own head and the mind of Indara. He's trying to convince her that this is the victim. This other girl, she might be lost. There's nothing we can do with her. She's already branded, but we can still save this one who likely resisted being part of this.
Indara knows right away, though, the coven is not going to let her go.
Right.
And the Jedi Council jumped to that conclusion, too. And they say that Saul and Torben interfered too much already. Prime directive, anyone? Let's get Trek. Let's get Trek wackiness going on here. But I mean, there is a certain nobility to the Prime directive.
Yeah.
And elements, sci-fi elements transfer almost seamlessly from franchise to franchise.
Right. Light speed, hyperspace, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, crap, there was a hyperspace button on the old Asteroids video game back in 1980. You don't think they just came up with it? Oh, what a coincidence. No, it's because it was introduced in Star Wars and just became a regular sci-fi term that you will find throughout all sort of different storytelling and franchises.
Also,
and so here we have Prime Directive coming into Star Wars.
And just to illustrate how not on the same page Saul and Indara are, Indara thinks that the whole offer to test the girls was a stalling tactic till they could figure out what's going on. Yeah. And she's like, oh, that was brilliant, Saul. Yeah. And then he's like, no, I want to test the girls. I feel this connection to Osha.
Yeah. He sees potential in having that Padawan.
Yes.
And with the Jedi, they have to give up all their possessions, all their attachments. They have to live a life just free of all of that stuff. So little things like, well, little to us, getting an apprentice, that's something that actually is a way to fulfill an individual's desire to have an attachment to something, because the Jedi and the Padawan get instant.
Good point. I mean, somehow that's
allowed.
allowed, right? That form of attachment is allowed.
Right. Yeah, it's a very slippery slope the Jedi are always sliding on, because it almost seems like the connection to the Force itself creates all kind of complications as far as your mental fortification goes and how you apply yourself to the Force. You're always being tempted. You're always being pulled. There's always the desire. It's impossible to suffocate it. Being a Jedi is really complicated, really difficult, and you have to sacrifice. You hear when May says, Mama said everyone must walk through fear. Everyone must be sacrificed to fulfill their destiny. She's not really, that's a kid's version of what Mother Anastasia was really saying in episode 3. But the Jedi kind of do the same thing, walking through fear, sacrificing themselves to serve the Force.
Talk about a slippery slope, though. This is where I really start. This is what we call moral relativism. This is where you start to put everybody on the same plane, and there's and everyone's equal. No one is morally superior or inferior, and that can be really interesting. I don't think that is appropriate for Star Wars, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think that's storytelling for other stories, other franchises. Star Wars is about big, broad, bold strokes.
Why is storytelling in Hollywood over the last decade or so obsessed with leveling the playing field that way? It strips away a lot of the drama. What you're doing is you're eliminating the boundaries and the borderlines and making everything seem too, I don't know, too left open to interpretation or too much from, being told from a certain point of view.
Well, there's no objective truth. Everything is just subjective.
Right.
Everything is.
And for Star Wars storytelling, there's always been a very thick line between good and evil, between, black and white, the good guys and the bad guys. It's always been there, and it's always been there visually. It's always been there in the story, and it's always been there in the character motivations. And then when you keep telling things from a certain point of view, you are stripping away a lot of character motivations that audiences supply to the characters. And it becomes too mushy. It loses its stability as a storytelling device when you strip away the heroes from a story. And who is the hero in this story? There is none.
There's not a hero in this story. You're absolutely right, and that's my biggest problem with it.
There's a vague protagonist in Osha, and maybe a vague protagonist in Saul, but they're very hard to root for, because they're very hard to relate to, because they're in this gray area where you don't understand their motivations. When you don't understand a character's motivations, it makes it very difficult for an audience to connect or even care about those specific characters.
Yeah.
And so Star Wars storytelling is doing a huge disservice to the saga and the franchise by going into this, what I would call a trendy direction, to create these. I mean, they're not even creating anti-heroes.
Right.
It's head scratch.
It is. We're doing an Andor rewatch in my house, and we just wrapped it up a couple of nights ago. And I was thinking about Luthen, who has emerged as one of my top Star Wars characters. I love Luthen. And Luthen is a gray character in the sense that he has to lower himself to do what the enemy that he's fighting is doing. He knows that he has to bring himself down to their level, to fight dirty, to sacrifice lives. But here's the thing. That's Luthen. He's a rebel. He's a soldier. He's not a Jedi. You can have gray characters in Star Wars. Just don't make them Jedi. The Jedi They're Superman. They need to come in with they need to be, truth, justice, the American way. They need to be true blue, I believe. And you said it great when you talked about how visually Star Wars has traditionally gone out of its way to avoid this by literally making Darth Maul look like a demon. There's nothing subtle about that. George didn't dwell in subtleties. So again, there's room
black,
for this.
Luke wears white.
Right.
You have these visual things that really don't anybody tell me about stormtroopers being white, because remember, they were originally clone troopers, good guys.
That's right.
So chew on that.
Before I forget, I do want to mention that there was absolute confirmation in this episode that Osha was deemed as being too old. That was from Indara. Not that there was any doubt. I think we all assumed that, but I don't think we heard that, like literally heard that in dialogue until this episode.
Indara via the Jedi Council. I thought this show might be taking us to a place where we discover that the Jedi realize that there is an age limit to training, and I thought it was going to happen in this show. But I mean, when you think about it, they say the Jedi have been around for thousands of generations, and they would have figured this out a long time ago, and they already have it in place. She's too old to be trained.
Yeah.
So what changes then? What changes? She's orphaned now. And so the Jedi then go, it's all right then. I guess she can be trained. I mean, what happens?
I think I have a theory from, in Indara's case, I have a theory. I don't know what changes the mind of the council, but in Dara's case, because Saul's ready to abort, Saul's ready to throw himself at the mercy of the council, and she looks at him and she goes, "Are you out of your mind? This girl has lost everything, and you're going to basically satisfy your own guilt by groveling to the council. Now she's literally going to lose everything because you're even taking her dream away from her." So I think that Indara was thinking that this poor girl had suffered enough. The very least they can do is give it a go. That's the only thing she's living for, is to be a Jedi at this point. That's Indara. That's not the council. I wouldn't think that sentimentality would work on the council, and we may never know.
Well, Indara, it is said in an earlier episode that Indara was the one who recommended to the council that Osha leave the Jedi Order after she had been trained by Saul.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That's an important character thing to know. And so what is, if that's the case, then Indara is lying to Saul about keeping this from the council to protect Osha. I think Indara is keeping this from the council to protect herself, because when she rescued Kelnaka, she tapped into the dark side of the Force and killed all of those.
Oh, do you think so?
Yes.
You think that was tapping into the dark side?
Yes.
Ooh, salacious.
And yes, as a result, then she determined why the cover-up should happen. Because I can't figure out any other reason why. It seemed like the Jedi were defending themselves. They were under attack. And also it seemed like Saul just screwed up when he killed Mother A. As she shifted into this dark smoky thing, it appeared as if she was going to attack the Jedi. But in essence, what she really was doing was she was trying to protect May and get her out of there, or whatever they do when they turn into black smoke. That was confusing because there was there was nothing to foreshadow or even tip us off that these witches turn into black smoke. And why do they turn into black smoke? That was never foreshadowed. There is no established foundation for that stuff. And that's where they screw up in the storytelling, is because it just becomes a weird moment. Why are they turning into smoke? There should have been something, anything in an earlier episode, episode 3, when they say when things get bad, we turn into black smoke. And it's
like the cortosis thing. Thank goodness we had you to tell us about cortosis, because we didn't find out what the hell it was until the next episode.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have had, like sometimes we need to know. It helps when we know what it is first, and then it becomes more impactful when we see it in play.
And that's the problem with the black smoke.
Yeah.
Is because there is nothing was established about that. And I get why Saul stabbed her with the saber.
Well, he was like, what the hell's going on? It was freaking him out.
It appeared that the sisters were all being very aggressive. They had bow and arrows all pointed at the Jedi, and Mother Coral had taken a fighting stance with that blade thing.
Her staff. Yeah, they were in a big standoff. Her and Torben.
So naturally, Torben goes on the defense, lights his saber, and he has to deflect darts and all kind of things. They're under attack. They are under attack.
They're under attack.
But that did happen after Saul killed Anastasia. That was the first blow. But Anastasia suddenly turns into a giant smoke monster, and to what end? To what end? I think she was doing it just to protect May. According to the audio descriptive track for this episode, she was enveloping May at that moment.
Yes, because May started to turn into black smoke as well.
Yes. So I think she was trying to protect May and get out of there. Now, Coral does it later in the scene. She turns into black smoke. We never see her again.
Right.
Does that black smoke, this Coral then? Is she the one who possesses Kalnaka? Because he suddenly appears, and then is she fortified by all the witches applying their power to control Kalnaka? The black smoke thing really needed to be set up somehow, or foreshadowed, or explained. We needed some kind of foundation for that ability of the witches. But no, they just throw it at us. And to surprise us. I mean, it was a surprise. I was like, what?
And the fact that a saber goes again, this whole back and forth with saber through the gut. Got another saber through the gut, and she was in an ethereal kind of form. She was like particles. She was mist. She was smoke. That kills her. But you've got fully corporeal people walking around with the sabers. This is the thing too. It's like Star Wars writers. We've got 40 years of precedent with how lightsabers work. We know how they work.
Right.
You don't need to reinvent how lightsabers work.
That's right. You're not that clever, for starters. So don't even try. And like you said, 4+ decades of fortification within the Star Wars fandom. Sometimes you can't turn the clock back,
Right.
You have to go with what's established.
Yes.
And you can't be wishy-washy.
You can
about
build.
Because,
you can create other things and build on things, but don't change it.
Because that is probably the most profound visual way of telling your audience you don't understand how Star Wars works.
Right.
So stop doing it. I think this series pays a little bit more respect to the weapon of the Jedi. And Leslie Headland, for all the
I agree. I agree with you there. Mm-hmm.
For all the criticisms Leslie Headland gets, she let it be known in an interview that it was forefront in her mind not to do anything to diminish what George Lucas established a lightsaber can do. And her usage of the corto, this was specifically her talking about using the cortosis gauntlets and helmet and everything. That has a precedence in the expanded universe. And I think that's a great way to provide a challenge to Jedi wielding lightsabers, as opposed to just saying, well, that lightsaber weapon of yours, that whole lightsaber, that's your life. It doesn't really hurt people. You can heal from a lightsaber wound to the midsection very easily. No, you can't. And it's already been established in Star Wars time and time again that you cannot survive that sort of injury. And yet the Kenobi series violates that rule twice. And the vaunted Dave Filoni, who learned at the feet of George Lucas, he didn't get lightsabers right either when he had Sabine take a stab to the stomach and then just like be, what? I just need first aid for this. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke and a weird perversion of what George Lucas established the lightsaber can do. So quit doing it. Stop doing it. You come off like hacks, total hacks when you do it. Leslie Headland shows respect to the lightsaber in this series.
She respects the saber.
She respects the saber. Yeah.
You know what? We've got more to talk about, but let's bring on a couple of callers here. Lots more in store as we kind of make our way through this episode and get to the big thrilling climax. But let's check in with this guy.
Let's
you
break
know
it
who
up.
I'm talking about. Come on. It's not working tonight. I'm sorry.
Jason, you gotta get the hamster running.
You know what I love? You know what I love about Blake? He's not going to answer until he hears his theme. So, by God, I got to do it. I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. Let's see if I can. Find it. No, don't laugh, Blake. This is serious. This is your big intro here.
I could sing it.
Yeah. Why is it not playing? This is so annoying.
Time for Blake's take. Now I'm working feverishly on my end to get the audio happening.
All right. Sorry, Blake. We'll give it to you on your way out. How about that? We'll give you a great exit. We got Blake on the line. Hey, Blake.
All right.
Sorry about that. Your button doesn't work, man.
Swank's fault.
It's all right.
Oh, look at Blake. He just rolls with it, man. You're so cool, Blake.
Well, I can do the intro.
Would you?
But for the finale.
Oh, for the finale.
Then you do the real one for when I leave.
Okay, all right. So you want to give us the real one right now? You want to give us your version right now?
Yeah.
All right. Everybody quiet. Blake's doing it. Okay, here it is.
It's time for Blake's Take.
There it is. All right. That's even better. Even better. All right, buddy. Sorry about that. All right, lay it on us. What do you think? Penultimate episode. One more next week.
Yeah. I definitely, like with last week's call-in show, I still definitely think all the stuff that I said about May, Osha, Soul, and the Stranger, that's all going to happen. But I thought more. Last episode, the Mog and the green lady.
Yeah.
Vern. I can't think of her name.
Vernestra.
Yeah. They're on that planet, and they're looking at all the bodies and everything, and of course they're gonna have to report this to the council. Like, they're gonna have to, the High Council.
Do they?
Because it's a bunch of Jedi dead, missing. But I think Vernestra is gonna try and cover it up with those bugs that were attacking them. I think she's going to try to cover up their deaths by that they were attacked by the environment. But Mog is going to...
Sorry,
he seems like
I can't keep a straight face
every
time someone says Mog. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
And then there's Mog.
But I think... he definitely seems like he's a big snitch. He's just gonna rat out all he knows, what he thinks, and all it. And in the episode, he says he thinks it's Soul.
He does.
Who does it? The only one with the power. So he's gonna tell the council. He'll probably be there too because he was on the trip to go find them, and he's gonna say that it was Soul that killed them all. What he knows, is what he's going to tell them. So that's going to play a big part if Soul can even make it back to Coruscant without dying.
Yeah, that's
It's
going to be
play
tough.
a big part. We're like a bunch could happen at Coruscant with him supposedly being the one that killed all the Jedi.
Yeah. Do you think he could go? Is he going to end up going on the lam, maybe with May? Like if he finds out that he's being accused of this and there's likely no way, could he maybe take off?
Yeah.
I think that May will definitely survive. She seems that she's turning to the light side. Osha's turning to the dark side. They're switching roles. But I think if Soul even survives all this coming in the next episode, he will go to Coruscant with May. And he'll try to defend himself. But it probably won't work out. Him and May will both have to go.
They might both take
prison.
the fall. Yeah. And then go to Jedi jail. But here's the thing though, Blake, well, this would be interesting. He's on his way potentially to Coruscant to admit to one crime, but he gets accused of another crime that he's not guilty of. Like, that would be a really interesting twist. That would be cool. I would totally be down with that, actually.
That'd be a nice twist, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. I've got your theme ready. I got, unless there's something else you want to lay on us.
I also think that the stranger, he has something, in some way and somehow, he has something to do with the mothers. He's either trained by one of them or was trained with Plagueis or whoever trained him. They helped train because he can get into their minds. Just like, and May specifically says it's either May or Osha. They specifically say that my mother was able to do the same thing.
That's right. They do draw parallels between Chimere and the witches. That's one of the parallels. The other parallel is a little more subtle, but it's Chimere's desire to be able to be who he is, express his Sithiness, unfettered by the Jedi. The witches want the same thing.
Right.
So you could see the enemy of my enemy being my friend in that sense. If there is some sort of allegiance between Sith and the witches, which I suspect there is, because I still think there was Sith interference, and I believe that's a word that they use, manipulation or interference, in this episode to describe how the twins would have been formed.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. What is the terminology they specifically use about? Because they do talk about
this
the twins.
Is impossible without some kind of manipulation. That's the word that they use. Manipulation.
You know, it's really interesting because they evaluate the blood samples from the twins, and the two blood samples reveal A, they're very strong in the Force, and B, their symbionts are the same. They're carbon copies. Impossible to do without some sort of Force manipulation.
One consciousness, two bodies.
Soul offers the idea that the twins were artificially created. Now that's those two words you can really pick apart. Are artificially created. So, like, what, in a test tube? Are they clones? What's going on here with these two, and why are they so strong in the Force? Indara believes that tapping into a power source strong enough to split one consciousness into two bodies. Whose consciousness?
I think it was
Mother Anastasia. Mother Anastasia lives because she is the twins. It's her consciousness fueling these two kids, and they just don't know it.
I don't think it's Anastasia. I don't think it's Anastasia.
one
I think that
consciousness
I agree.
in two bodies. She said she created them, while the other one, Coral, said, well, I birthed them. And she said, well, I created them via her consciousness.
Yeah, but if Anakin was also born or conceived in a similar fashion, that doesn't mean that it's Shmi's consciousness in Anakin. It's its own unique.
And it wasn't Coral's consciousness. It's Mother Anastasia's consciousness.
Well, then it wasn't
Shmi's consciousness. It's possibly Darth Plagueis. It's possible.
No, that would make them the same person. That would mean that Anakin Skywalker is whoever manipulated the midichlorians.
The one consciousness in the two bodies. You're right about that. So I do have to take that back, because you are right about that. That it doesn't line up. It doesn't not line up. So only a vergence can create that type of power. It's something different than what eventually leads to Anakin Skywalker. I think Anakin Skywalker is born out of divine interference from the light side of the Force as a counter reaction to experimentations Plagueis and Sidious were doing. Why the twins? Maybe that's another counter reaction to the Force manipulations the witches were.
Well, the twins, I think the twins, them being twins is a degree to which the experiment has failed. I think that is a failure in the process. That was not intended. That's unfortunate, because you basically stripped them of half of their power, I think.
By splitting them.
By splitting them in
maybe
two.
They were split into a dark side and a light side. Again, the light side of the Force interfering with this manipulation and creating a yin to the yang, just like with Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker is a yin to the dark side yang that created. In this case, it's the witches, and the yin and the yang occur with the dark side creating May, the light side creating Osha, but yet they're the same people.
Oh, that's interesting. That idea that Anakin is the yin to the yang,
yes,
and the twins are the yin and the yang.
Yeah, right. In one package.
One package, yeah. All right, Blake, we're going to send you off with your theme, buddy. We'll talk to you next time, okay?
All right.
All right, bud. Take care.
It's time for Blake's Take.
There he goes.
It's a
All
fish.
Right. It's a fish. All right, we should check in with, how about Brian from Virginia?
Yes.
Brian's on the line. And Brian, he's a Patreon member. Thank you very much, Brian. And he's got something to say about Indara.
Yes. Hey, Jason, Jimmy.
Hey,
a few quick points, and I'll hush. All right. Point number one. The first one. Kelnaka better not be going to Gettysburg with his metal detector and be looking for Civil War bullets. And the reason I say that is that pulled me out. That pulled me out of the show the first bit. That pulled me out of the show the first off. I was like, wait a minute. It looks like he's going after artillery shells or bullets or something. He's on a battlefield or something. I don't know. They could have added some stuff to that metal detector. That's all I'm saying on that. Okay.
There were, George used to call them greeblies. George called them greeblies, the little doodads that you would put on an everyday object to Star Warsify them. I didn't see any greeblies on that on that metal detector.
No.
No.
It took me out of the show totally. I even missed the AK-47 on Andor. I didn't even notice that. I heard about it later, but this one just really brought me out of that show right off the bat. And that might have been why I'm going on to point number two.
It wasn't far away enough from our galaxy, I'll say that.
No. Point number two, Indara. Oh, my gosh, it just drove me nuts out of that one. It pulled me back into the real world and real-world situations. I had a boss like that. Toxic, imminent.
Yep, there it is.
Rough.
She's totally middle managed.
I got to say it. Sorry, I got to say it. I had to say it. It's just they need to get. You know, we like Leia. Leia got on Poe in Last Jedi, right? But we like Leia. I mean, she called him out. It was a military situation, now. But anyway,
she's Leia.
Enough
she's
about her.
Earned. Well, wait. I think I know what you're saying is that Leia, over 40-some years of history, has earned the position to smack Poe around, a little bit. I had a problem with Haldo.
That's right.
Because I'm like, who the hell are you?
Haldo, right.
Big difference. You got to earn
purple hair.
Right. You and your purple hair.
That's right.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Number three.
Mm-hmm.
Number three. Madam Coral says, May, get mad. The only thing I could see is Avengers and Captain America going, Hulk, smash. But you didn't do nothing.
Right.
Like, goodness gracious.
Get
All
mad.
right. And then fourthly and finally, trying to keep it positive. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to say it. I probably won't go back and revisit this show after it's done. I'm going to watch it through and get through it. But I probably won't go back and revisit it. The characters, y'all probably mentioned this already, the characters are just not likable. And if they've done anything good enough, like I said in the message today, they've made the characters about as bad as the life on Breaking Bad, if you know what I'm talking about. Where they they built the characters up so bad you just don't like them in any show. They come on any other show to do that.
I hear you. I'll tell you what, one thing I'm going to disagree with you on, Brian, is I do intend to rewatch this show once all the episodes have been released, because I want to see if that helps. Because I have a feeling it's going to help to shrink that period that period of time, because I think the choices of where they start and end episodes is really troubling to me. And I think that it's hurting the storytelling. And I will say, for this type of drama, 32 minutes is not enough time. Not enough time. Give us full episodes, guys.
Sitcom length. Stop it.
Yeah.
Give us something we can sink our teeth into. Yeah. Slow down the story maybe a little bit, I mean, don't they know how to make Star Wars that can fill up an hour? I sure do. And a lot of my friends know how to do it too. But yet they send Guillermo del Toro home and they say, Sinead Obaid Chinoy, come on board. I don't get this company no more. They hire all these writers to work on the Acolyte who have zero professional experience. This is Star Wars.
It's a fact. This is not someone's opinion. This is a fact. I don't know how Star Wars became, you know what? I've always wanted to work in television. I think I'll cut my teeth on directing a Star Wars episode.
Right.
How is this possible? This should be the cream of the crop.
It's a joke. It's become a joke. You have to get the best writers, the best directors. Oh my God. I'm tapping into Eastside Dave. It's happening. It's happening. Once the cork comes off that bottom.
Once you start down the Dave path, forever with it.
I know.
Let's get to some super chats here. Here's the Cyber Drive-In Theater says nothing. He just sent us $1.99. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. That's very nice of you.
Cyber Drive-In Theater. I want to go there.
Michael next door says there's a lot worse Star Wars out there than the Acolyte. Some of the action is pretty fantastic, like Episode 5. I was asking FJ last night. I said, dude, who's the fight choreographer on this show? Because they're great. I have not been disappointed with any of the combat stuff. Mm-hmm. It's been 100 times better than Ahsoka. the lightsaber battles and the combat way better.
Yeah,
way better than Kenobi too.
I mean, you want to talk about rewatching this show and all this stuff. I don't want that pressure, but all in all, when I look at the show, I see more positive than negative. I really do, and that will result in me giving the series an overall thumbs up if they provide a solid landing next week, and if they fulfill all of these ideas that they've presented throughout the show. I think that's important. The Chimere thing, gosh, I don't see how his story is going to come to an end next week. He's very compelling. I think he's a very compelling villain. And I don't see his story coming to an end next week. I think that's going to be one of those loose threads. Should they get a season 2, it's something they can address a little further. However, with the Jedi, I feel like the story is going to come to an end for characters like Saul. We already know Indara is dead. We already know Kelnak is dead. We already know Torben's dead. The big mystery is Saul, who I don't think will survive this season, and Osha and May specifically.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, Coral turned into the black smoke and disappeared. And she may be a big factor in the final episode had she survived, because we never saw her body in episode 3. We never saw her there with the witches. She wasn't there with the witches. She wasn't there with Anastasia. She split. And so I think that she's a big loose end. Will this all be concluded next week? I think for Coral, I think for Saul, and I think for the Jedi involvement in this whole situation, I think that'll come to an end next week. But I think there'll be loose ends, and the loose ends will be Osha, May, and Chimere. Or maybe just Osha and Chimere.
You know, the whole revenge motive for May going after Torben and Kelnaka, and by the way, they seem to drop this whole like killing without a weapon thing. That was like a thing that they were obsessed with in the first couple of episodes, and that's
that in. Maybe we'll learn why. What was the
might.
motivation about that?
But I'm starting to wonder now, like beyond the revenge thing, what could the motivation be? And the one other thing that all these Jedi have in common, in addition to being somewhat complicit with the death of the witches and the destruction of the coven, is that they're all witnesses to this vergence and these twins. And
if that is indeed vergence, because the Jedi are convinced the twins were created by tapping into whatever this vergence is. But the twins themselves, like you are implying, Jason, the twins themselves could be the vergence that they're seeking.
Yeah, I wrestled with this line. Only a vergence could create that type of power.
Right.
By tapping into a power dense enough to split one consciousness into two bodies. Yeah, the vergence perhaps amplified the force to the level that was required to do something like this. I still think the witches had help. I don't think Anastasia did this on her own. I think she was taught, she was instructed. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But
because they would have been doing this all along,
right?
To further build their coven and fortify their future. They would have been creating children a long time ago. But this is like a fresh thing,
right? But getting back to what unites these four is I kept thinking that they were being exterminated by May one by one, being picked off by her because of revenge and their role in what happened on Brendok.
Yeah.
It could be that they're being bumped off because they're the only witnesses to a Sith.
Yes, I believe that's more the case. The Sith Lord,
right?
Whoever that is, we don't even know.
We don't.
Whoever that is in control of the whole thing and will eventually reveal itself and clean up all the loose ends. My big question is, Chimere has no connection to the witches that we know of thus far. But we do know Chimere considers himself to be a Sith. And so how does that connect to the Jedi incident on Brendok with the coven? Is Chimere just using the knowledge of what happened Brendok because Brendok because maybe May told him, and so he's exploiting that to fuel her anger and drive her as close to the dark side or envelop her in the dark side as much as possible? Or does Chimere have some sort of actual connection to the witches and the coven and I mean, that's the tricky stuff. And Coral, I think Coral, because we never saw her body, we saw her escape in this episode. I think she's an influence on Chimere, but I don't think she's an influence on the Master Sith Lord. Yeah, I think Chimere. Can you
imagine if the Sith Lord was revealed to be Coral?
No, I don't think so.
No, I'm just saying, can you imagine if?
Yeah. Yeah, that would take a bit of explaining.
Yeah.
I think something like that can be in play.
I think so too. I hadn't thought of it until you just started bringing Coral back, and Coral, I mean, is May was willing, or Mother A was willing to give him up. Coral was not, to the point that she tells May when she's just a little kid, do what you got to do. Get angry, get mad. This is not happening. You're not going, or your sister's not going anywhere. We're going to keep the family together.
Yeah.
So, boy, it's a tall order for the last episode. There's so much that could happen, and I feel like needs to happen. Hey, we got a room full of Patreons here. We've got the Boston area watch party. Want to chime in? Hey guys, what's happening there in Boston?
Hey. Oh, we are enjoying your show. Thank you. You're kind of being
Are you
our
by yourself?
therapist.
Are you, who is this?
No,
Identify.
it's me, Scott St. Louis.
Okay,
Scott
well,
St.
you know
Louis,
what?
RFR
Are you by
VIP.
yourself? Are you by yourself? I don't hear any noise back. Let me hear everyone cheer.
That's because,
come on.
All right, let's do a power minute.
Bring some energy to this. There's so much.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. We're gonna get banned from this.
Here's some craziness from you guys. You guys are there drinking the spiked blue milk. There's like 4 or 5 of you. Four.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 tonight. I think we've got 3 tonight.
Yeah,
well, I want the power of 3. I want the power of 1. I want the power of 2. I want the power of 3. I want all of it.
Okay. Well, you can. Here it comes. All right. So first, I got to just again say thank you guys for bringing people together, and we would not be here if it wasn't for you guys in RFR. First, I'm going to throw out a theory that I have. What I think we're going to see next week. I think we're going to see that Osha is going to kill Saul, and she's going to do it without a weapon. And she's either going to force choke him or force lightning. And she is going to be the acolyte. So that's my little theory.
Osha or May? Osha or May?
Osha is going, when she realizes the truth, that she's been lied to, that she's been betrayed, she's going to turn on Soul, and she's going to become the acolyte.
Oh, God. Do we have to hear the story again for when he tells Osha?
I don't know. I just have to say that in all of this, I've been happy to follow along. It's been great keeping up with you guys, but I'm really getting tired. So I'm ready for it to be over, but I'm not ready for it to be over with my compatriots here. So.
I know.
Yeah.
It is fun. It is fun. I mean, I have to admit, every week I look forward to that Tuesday night when I can get my Star Wars on with new Star Wars. And me and Jason have been breaking down episodes and films for a long time. We sat through a lot of Clone Wars episodes that really missed the mark by a mile. But we treated all
that. They forget that.
We go into it with the desire to have a good time with Star Wars, and we treat each addition to the mythology appropriately and give it its amount of attention that is necessary to fully analyze it. There's one thing I don't like about fandom. is the whole idea that when something is new and presented to the fan base and some don't like it, they get snobby about it and they stick their nose up and they go, "Oh, not my Star Wars." And it doesn't even become, there's no conversation about it. There's no nuanced discussion about it. It's again, I always like to talk about the Star Wars that exists as opposed to the Star Wars I actually want to see. I know Star Wars is filled with potential to tell great stories. I don't think Lucasfilm is actually approaching it in the proper frame of mind to bring out the best potential for the storytelling. I really don't. But I will accept, just like I did with those duds of Clone Wars episodes that we had to sit through with Poison Snapple on the planet Mandalore and Satine's nephew Corky and all of this crazy crap we had to deal with over the years. We are calloused enough to be able to
I'll tell you this,
slide
you would have
through
loved
mediocre storytelling to get to the good stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
So you would have, I'm just going to say, you would have loved to have been here because we were having a very passionate discussion about all things Star Wars related to this episode before the show. I think we probably got as close to a fist fight as would have ever happened. But we're able to do it as friends. We do it with respect and love of Star Wars.
Man, that is so missing. I love it. I love when we do this on the Jedi Council thread all the time.
Yeah, we do.
We get real mad about certain things, and then we'll try to deliberately push each other's buttons because we know what where the soft spots are. But I just wish that people could sort of take that same spirit into other things. But I will say this: everyone knows I'm not a big sports guy. But one thing that Mac and I have always sort of likened ourselves to is sports talk radio. And you're going to have your favorite teams and you're going to have the people you root. I'm always going to root for Team Star Wars, but if I think they're having a crappy season and if I think the coach isn't working out, I'm going to call it. It doesn't mean I don't like Star Wars and I'm no longer a fan, but I need the grace to be able to say that. And the people that jump to, you got trash talk, you're not a fan. Or on the other side, like Mac was saying, the people that go, I don't like this, it's not my Star Wars, right? And the nose goes up and they look down at the rest of us that are just having fun with this. This isn't life and death, folks.
Yeah.
Right. And also I want to say,
sometimes
there's so many different Star Wars stories in the pipeline right now being made by many different creators. And we've seen different takes on Star Wars depending on through which the lens of the storyteller who is telling the story. I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that the Acolyte is the definitive vision for Star Wars moving forward into the future. And I fear too many fans live under that premise.
Great point.
That once it goes down one road, forever like it's the dark side, forever will it control the destiny of Star Wars. No, this is just another drop in the bucket. And then we're going to get Skeleton Crew made by John Hamm and John Favreau. Then we're going to get Andor made by Tony Gilroy and his crew. It's different. And none of that's going to be affected by the Acolyte and what happens in the show. And another great thing about having the Acolyte take place 100 years prior to the prequels is we can see that the storytelling in the Acolyte has very limited impact on anything that happens in the prequel trilogy or beyond. So it can't because those stories are set in stone. And while we can look at it from different perspectives based on the new avenues of storytelling that goes on, none of it is a definitive vision for what Star Wars is going to be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 6 years from now. None of it. Lucasfilm just keeps throwing stuff up against the wall to see if it sticks. And then there's going to be another creative and another series, and then a film, and then who knows? I mean, you can't just be like, oh my God, Star Wars is going to be this way forever. because it's not with all those different diverse.
It's a great point. Look at how different this series is from Andor.
Yeah.
And how different it is from Mandalorian. You're right. Nothing's forever. We thought, on a more positive side, that, man, after Mando season 2, on that high, we thought, oh, Star Wars is back and bigger and better than ever. And that turned out to not be the case. So it goes both ways.
Because Lucasfilm obviously didn't feel the same way. They're kind of tone deaf over there in San Francisco, I'll just say. They've exposed their lack of connection to the fan base and to what Star Wars fans want in their effort to try to mold it in their own vision. But the thing is, they're presenting so many different visions, so many different outlooks, so many different ways of presenting the story to us that maybe it's on them. They need to establish some consistency before I start jumping to the conclusion that Star Wars is going in a certain direction based on the accolades.
That's just it. It has no direction right now.
It has no
anything goes.
And that's kind of frustrating. That's kind of frustrating, but it also always presents a blue sky in front of both the storytellers and the audience. So it doesn't get, boxed into a corner. All right, Scott, I know you're busting at the seams. You got things to say, so say it.
Well, actually, it's not Scott. He gave up. He gave the phone to Brian. Actually, the reason he gave it, he actually gave it to me because your point of the sports talk radio kind of fits in with my portion of the conversation I was having with them earlier, which is,
well, who's this?
Who are we talking? Having a really bad. Brian.
Reveal
Brian
your identity. Brian. Good old Brian. Good to hear from you, Brian.
Yeah. Good to hear from you guys too. And so I kind of feel like the GM's having a bad year here. I feel like they had a good writer, and I feel like what they're doing with this 8-episode structure and the fact that they only had about 4 of those episodes that had run times over 35 minutes when you take the credits out doesn't give them enough time to develop characters. It doesn't give them enough time to move a story forward the way that we want. And I think it ends up leaving people wanting more and underwhelmed at the end of these stories. And I think they really have to go back to the drawing board and understand why Gilroy is like, no, I'm doing 12 episodes and the runtimes are going to be 40 minutes or more because that's what I need to tell my story. And I think they dropped the ball here because they had a chance to bring in new characters, to tell a new story that wasn't beholden to the original trilogy because it's a different time and it's all new characters. And by only giving them this amount of time, you never really, like you said it, the only thing that's compelling, the only character who's compelling to me is Kamir, who we don't know what's going to happen next week. But honestly, he's the only one I'm worried about what's going to happen moving forward. Everybody else, I couldn't care less if I see them again,
Yeah. And maybe to some degree, though, I want to say to some degree, maybe that was by design because a number of the characters that they gave us are dead already.
Right.
So, I didn't like Fondor all that much, but who cares? He's dead. Jecki was kind of annoying. Who cares? She's dead.
Yeah, it's true. And I think when you have this type of opportunity, I think you just got to give, and again, it may have been the writing, who knows? Like this is the argument, is it the manager, is it the GM? But I just think when you look at Ahsoka, when you look at even Mandalorian season 3, when you get into more detailed stories, more character-driven stuff, you need a little more time to tell those stories. And I just don't think they're giving the writers and the creatives enough time to do that the right way.
Yep.
You can't write with nuance. You can't layer characters. You can't do any of that. You're just kind of, you know what I mean? You had no.
It's all right. Your Boston is showing, and I love it. It's awesome.
Always.
Who else is there? Do we have one more guy at the party?
Dave. Yep. Let me. I'll give you to Dave. Hold on.
All right, Dave. Dave coming on.
Well, I'm going to make it quick, guys, at the end. I see the Rashomon elements coming in. We'll probably have Chimere's view next week. But I see the true acolyte that is developing in the Rebel Force Radio After Show call-in. It is Blake. We have an acolyte here.
I think Blake is full-blown Sith apprentice. I don't think he's acolyte. I think he is...
He's got the Cortosis helmet on when he calls
cheers, guys. Gonna leave it at that.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Thanks to the Boston area Acolyte Watch Party.
Talk to you guys next week.
Yes. Well, we'll have a programming update about that. Let's talk. Oh, wait. We got some more super chats here. Our buddy Rich Brendok. Wow, $30. He goes, put toward the beer fund for everyone who had to moderate the RFR Facebook page today. You guys do an amazing job. Yeah, I hear there's all kinds of fireworks going on there at the Rebel Force Radio Facebook page. Thanks. Appreciate that, buddy. Brian Shapiro says, by choosing to let her fall, did Saul do to May what Luke couldn't bring himself to do to Ben Solo? I did not see that, Brian, until my second viewing of the episode, and I took some screen captures here because I wanted to sort of get the emotion and the action here on the screen.
Oh, I see.
So we've got Saul here using both hands to hold up both sides of the bridge, one side with May, one side with Osha. He's struggling mightily to do it. He's trying to save both. It's clear that he doesn't have the power to save both. So you see both hands shift to the Osha side, to the right side, which then causes May to drop, and that's it. So in addition to killing Mother Anastasia, Saul also chose to be judge and jury. I don't know what that sound is. Oh, that might be coming from...
Hot Pocket is ready.
Hot Pocket. Saul... is responsible or believes to be responsible for losing May, not killing May, but letting May die. He can only save one. Who would you save?
Right. He wants his apprentice, you know.
What the hell is that?
Ding! That's some alert.
Yeah, I know. I just don't know what, because nothing's popping up here and everything else is muted.
The emergency fanboy alert is going off, and we all must go to our parents' basements and watch Star Wars and play video games and drink Mountain Dew. The emergency nerd alert.
Yeah, but no, Brian, you're absolutely right. Saul did let May perish. But he's asking, did Saul do to May what Luke couldn't bring himself to do to... No, I don't think that it was a choice. I don't think that it was a choice, but I don't think Saul said, oh, this girl is evil, this girl is dark.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Luke had was getting the feeling that Ben, there was something very dark with Ben. But, you're comparing two really... I don't think they handled that situation very well at all. The whole Luke killing or about to kill his nephew.
Of course not. That's that whole Rashomon crapola that these Star Wars creatives are so gobsmacked with because they're hacks. They don't know what they're doing. Mystery boxes, Rashomon. Stop Rashomoning me. Tell a straightforward linear story.
You cannot give me an example of a better simple story than the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
And sure, there was mystery contained within because it dropped us into the middle of the story.
But not for the sake of mystery.
No, it wasn't what fueled the story. Sure, there were blanks that needed to be filled in and got filled in down the road. But our prime focus was always like Luke developing into a Jedi and destruction of the evil galactic empire that had a grip on the galaxy. Those were the things we were concerned with, and those are the things that drove the story. As the story evolved, we learned that Luke's father was Darth Vader. And that added a more interesting twist into the story where Luke's primary motivation was to save his father, to redeem his father. And he was successful in that. But it all happened in a very natural way where these priorities stacked up on top of each other. With storytelling going on now, with gimmicky mystery box storytelling, and you can quote Kurosawa films all you want because you think that gives your storytelling a backbone. But at the end of the day, it's the mysteries that are first and foremost as these tales are being told, as opposed to the actual story itself. They're leaning way too much into gimmicky storytelling. Thank you, J.J. Abrams, for bringing that to Star Wars and acting like it's a noble thing you're doing. It's something that these guys, and I'll say it again, they're hacks. This is hack writing. Tell a flipping story. This isn't a magic trick. Tell a story.
All right. Hey, we got a Patreon here on the line from Atlanta. Michael hanging with us here.
Shut, boys.
Shut, buddy. I see. Are you a first-time caller? Is that what I see in the notes from Tyler?
I am a first-time caller. We got a lot of
welcome
in
bell.
Atlanta.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. What's on your
perfect
mind?
Tommy, I got one quick observation and then one question about the storyline.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, you just talked about it. Saul's standing across from the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
He has enough of the force to be able to, those bridges weigh a lot. He couldn't have just lifted the two girls instead of trying to lift one bridge. Okay, maybe that destroys the whole storyline, but just an observation. It took me out of it this week.
Michael, I gotta say, I agree. I don't know why the writers, why they do this to themselves, because there's other ways to give them to have the same thing, but not weaken the ability of a Jedi to use the Force, or the Force is so selective. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's super powerful, sometimes it's not. Sometimes, you got Saul, he's able to hear the conversation between the two twins when they're up before he goes up the wall.
Yeah.
But yet he can't find a vergence.
Well, I think see, this is a problem that I think a lot of fans look at the Force is like, once a character is opened up to the Force, they have all of these abilities at their disposal. But I don't think that's quite the way the Force works. And I think this has been proven time and time again throughout the Clone Wars episodes, where certain Jedi have certain abilities. Not all Jedi possess the same, or light side users for that matter, the same Force abilities. They can tap into the Force and use it for various things, but there's no standard access that Jedi get as far as using the Force. And I think that's a smart storytelling move, because I think by granting everyone universal powers, it backs the whole storytelling into a corner. I think there has to be variety. Sure. Different Force users have different.
I'll absolutely go with that. I think you're right. I also think that, and I remember thinking this the very first time I saw The Phantom Menace, when the droidekas are coming out and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan have that ability to run real fast. We have never seen that before. New Jedi ability.
We never see that again.
Right. And we haven't really seen it again. You're right. Good point. But what I thought in that moment was, perhaps the Force, and you Harry Potter fans might get this, the room of requirement. Perhaps the Force is able to give you the ability that you need within the moment, that it can manifest in your experience the way that you most need it. So in that instance, they needed speed. That's not necessarily something that they practice. They don't have a big a racetrack there in the Jedi Council where they're practicing their Force runs. Although I'm sure there's some novel or comic book that illustrates that. But I do think that there's an element of giving yourself over to the Force, and that it what is it? Luke says that it controls your actions, and he says no. I'm trying to remember that line. If someone can help me out between.
Well, he says to Ben, he says,
Right.
so it controls your action. Ben says partially, but it also obeys your commands.
It also obeys your commands. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that combination of things. So what I don't like though in this instance is Saul. I thought it was weak. I just didn't think that he wouldn't have that ability to save them both. To your point about bringing the girls up, I don't know. It could be nitpicking. I'm open to it. You can call me out on it, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So my follow up to this is, and a lot of other callers have hit on this, and we've been hitting on it for the whole series. It's been a roller coaster, up and down. You know, some episodes you're pulled in, some episodes are weak. Do you think that when it's all said and done, that some real fans could come back and pull a Patterson, I think it's a Patterson cut, and be able to put this thing together in a more, given this was a director's choice, it's a director, and that's what she's paid for, she put it together this way. But do you think some fans or some intelligent editors could put this together in a more fluid context?
No, I don't think editing is the problem. No, I'll say I don't think editing is the problem here. I don't really have a problem with the editing. I do have an issue with the really short episodes where they've decided to chop it up. I actually think that the best fan edit, in my opinion, would be just to take all the intros out and stitch the whole damn thing together like one continuous movie. I think that would be a much better experience for this show and this story than what they have. So, and I'll be honest, I certainly admire the work and the dedication that the fan editors have. But to me, that's like somebody going up to an artist's painting and going, "Oh no, you missed a few spots here. I'm just going to fix this painting for you." It's an art form, and I don't like to glorify the fan edits. I think they're interesting, but I don't want to rely on them, to in any way enhance or improve. In this instance, I don't think editing is a problem here. That's just my take.
Do you think Disney would ever put one together solid from beginning to end in one encompassing show without the beginnings into the end? Okay.
No, I don't. And I don't mean to say that in a dismissive way, like your idea is dumb. I just go, no, because I don't think that they have that kind of ambition.
Or the desire.
Right. Or the desire.
They want you to watch 8 episodes of this show. They like how the statistics work. And if they put it all together in one thing, that's only 1 click as opposed to 8 clicks. So everyone's so motivated by clicks.
Yeah.
So
you put it out afterwards, and then people sign up again for it.
Well, no, I actually, Michael, I think it's a cool idea. I think that if you were to, after the series runs its course, put out something, and I think it would really work with this show, is like a continuous, like almost like a branch, like the old DVDs where you could have like branching, so you could have different edits.
Yeah.
Like a branching style stream of the whole show continuous. I wouldn't say that about Andor. As great as Andor is, I think Andor, it felt to me like something like 24 or Homeland, like one of those kinds of dramas where it wasn't hurt by the fact that it was ended or stopped at a certain point. This show, I feel like it's just when it's starting to kind of cook and I'm kind of into it, it stops. That's the problem I've had. So anyway,
thank you, boy.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for the call. Thanks for being a Patreon. Thanks for being a first-time caller there. Do want to get to these super chats before we wrap things up. Brian Shapiro says, "Oh, we already got to Brian's. Brian, you got double the value there." Here's Eddie Baker says, "Another story for another time seems to unfortunately be the common theme." Excuse me. You can drink here, but don't eat here. Another story for another time seems to be, unfortunately, the common theme for Star Wars now. As always, love the show. May the Force be with you. Jim, that's sort of that mystery box that you were talking about. Another story, another time, famously said by Maz Kanata, to explain how the hell she got Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from Empire Strikes Back.
We are 9 years later, and the other time has yet to occur. I just don't get why any storyteller or filmmaker would purposefully leave big holes in the narrative to never get filled in. What is the mental process that is behind all of this? I think it's a case of too many of the wrong voices at the table. I think a big problem is lack of leadership at Lucasfilm. It's obvious they don't know what they're doing. It's obvious. And I'm not saying that just about the Acolyte, because I kind of like the show. And I kind of don't understand a lot of the backlash it's receiving. But I do understand a lot of the backlash it's receiving as well, you know? I just think with a franchise as powerful as Star Wars, why are we pussyfooting around all the good stuff? Create this. Who wanted this story? Is this only there just to fortify their whole High Republic concept? That to me is a dud in publishing. It's a dud to this old school, long time, since the beginning Star Wars fan. But Lucasfilm seems very gung-ho on it. So is this just all part of trying to make that into a thing? Why? When you have all the other elements of Star Wars to play with? Why do you have to create some weird subsection of Star Wars that very few want and very few desire?
It is bizarre.
Have so much potential and possibility.
What about the low-hanging fruit? You know that expression, the low-hanging fruit, right? Like, where's some of that? I do want to give a shout-out to one scene that we didn't talk about, and that is when Mother A, as Mac has deemed her, Mother A, when she stands up to the coven and she says to them that she chooses her motherhood over her leadership of the coven in that instance. And that's what she's doing. I thought that was really powerful. And that was one moment where I go, I kind of like her. Because, you know, as a parent, you know, if you're not a parent, you may not understand this, but you do make these choices that you might not normally make. Always. But parenthood, what it is it's sort of God's way of, you know, showing you how to lead a less selfish life. That's sort of what parenthood is. And I think that in the case of Mother A, Coral is very selfish, very possessive. They're my children. I bore them. I want to keep them. And Mother A is much more open to the idea of we're here to forge a path for our children to spring from, to move on from. So I thought that was a really great moment and surprising, actually, from this show.
Well, you know, as a parent, you always want to give your child whatever they want. And it's obvious Osha wants to join the Jedi. And despite Mother Anastasia being so firmly and almost possessively or obsessively connected to this coven and her role as the leader there, being a parent and trying to fulfill your children's wants and desires supersedes all of that. So she thumbs her nose to what is the establishment in her existence and goes down the road of family matters most. My children matter more to me than all of these random witches that are leaning on me for guidance and leadership. I don't need to be their leader. I am a parent. I'm a mother.
I'm a mother, and it's a higher calling. It's a higher place to make decisions from, I believe. So anyway, I wanted to shout that out. I thought that was really great. We do have a few more super chats. Want to make sure we get to them. Did Indara kill the witches that were possessing Kelnaka? Their bodies just fell over dead, like their minds died in the Matrix. Yeah, that's absolutely what happened. She was casting their spirits out of Kelnaka, and that resulted in their death. That's a lot of power. That's a lot of power that Indara possessed, and that's a big body count. I mean, what is that, like 50?
Yeah. Well, again, I think she's tapping into the dark side of the Force.
It's possible.
To save Kelnaka in that situation. And I think that is her prime motivation for wanting to hide all of this from the Jedi Council, because once you reveal this to the Jedi Council and Yoda starts looking and going, he'll start to see, the reality of the situation will start coming to Yoda.
Right.
And you want to keep old Yoda in the dark about that kind of thing. And then she further manipulates the situation later down the line, several years later down the line, when she impresses upon the Jedi Council that Osha should not be part of the Order. And she leads the charge to expel Osha from the Order, possibly putting on so much pressure on Osha, she decides to leave. And she thinks it's her own decision.
Yeah.
But in fact, it was manipulated the whole time by Indara, who is still motivated by covering up what actually happened on Brendok.
Wow.
Now, that's kind of compelling stuff.
No, it is good stuff. When I hear you say it like that, get Jimmy Mack in the pitch meetings.
Oh, I know. Writers room for every show, for every movie. It should be me, Swank, FJ, and Kyle sitting at that table.
Speaking of FJ and Kyle, Mariana's putting her vote. She says, I look forward to hear Kyle and FJ post-show analysis. They always have great things to say. Paul should also come in and let it all out. Chut, may the force. Mariana, if you can find Paul, let us know where he is. Right? Paul seems to have disappeared.
He's gone.
He's
just
gone.
like in black smoke. He was in front of us and turned into black smoke, and just poof, he was gone.
You imagine Paul just doing that witchy move. Here's David. He says, enjoyed watching Acolyte with my kids, discussing theories for weeks. Love the fighting. This ep a little cringe, though. How does Chimere fit into Brendok? David, that's $1 million question. I would love to believe that Chimere fits into Brendok, but I don't know. I don't know if the writers have, if that's within their scope of this story. If Chimere fits into Brendok,
there has to be.
You would think, right?
Because he's aware of the 4 Jedi. And just the way when he referred to Master Saul, when he was talking to to Osha to May. I'm sorry, to May. Or was it Osha? Gosh, I'm getting them all.
Well, there was that whole thing where it was like, you don't remember me, do you? Between Saul and Chimere. So there's history there, potentially.
I thought that indicated a history, but the more the story has begun to unfold, I think he's specifically referring to that time the Jedi came to the apothecary,
the drugstore,
questioning. And I think Chimere was surprised that Saul didn't, recognize him or identify him at that moment, because Chimere has never faced a Jedi while wearing that helmet. And so going into it, I don't think I don't think he was fully convinced that helmet thing was going to work, the Cortosis helmet. And then when he flat out asks, Saul, you don't remember me? He's like, oh, he doesn't. Good. This helmet thing works.
It works. It's working. It's working. That's cool. I didn't think about that. That's good. Rich with another $5 says, Team Gen X-Wing. That's right. Team Gen X. Say it loud. Say it proud. I love, I'm a late Xer. I think the cutoff is 81 or something like that. I think it's 80,
they tried to make they tried to establish a Gen Y sort of thing with guys like you who were born in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah, right.
But that never took off. It's like,
no, it did take off.
You know why? Because Gen Z is so tiny and small. It's such a small piece of the pie when you compare to boomers and millennials that we need all the fortification we can get. Give us the Gen Y. Let's just make them Gen X and call it a day. We're still the smallest generation around.
We man, we were the latchkey kids. We were the we got on the Huffy bikes after school and ran till dark.
Yeah, we did. I hope some kids out there are still doing that to this day. I hope that
my son does that. My son gets he gets home from school, jumps on his bike, and goes down the road to the neighbors. I don't know if he's playing. Some days he's playing basketball. Some days he's playing football in the front yard. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And I was so happy when I found out that he and the neighbor kid went and were just took their shoes and socks off and were walking in the creek and picking up crawfish and stuff like that. It was very Opie Cunningham there.
Adventures of Huckleberry Finn going on in Ohio there, I guess.
Nice. Kurt Bear says, so many nonsensical story beats, missed opportunities, failed executions, and maddening moments make this series a major bummer. The main value of this show for me is the after shows, RFR/Gen X #1. Thanks, Kurt. Sorry you're having a rough time with the show, but I'm very glad that these after shows are making it worth it for you. I say just have fun with it. Laugh at it, laugh with it, and talk to your buddies and, enjoy it. You're in a position where, the worst thing that's going on is you're not excited about the current Star Wars series. There's always going to be another one. We got Skeleton Crew coming up. I'm so psyched about Andor Season 2 after doing the rewatch. I can't tell you how excited I am for Andor Season 2. And Jim, I think when there's all this talk about ratings, I think if we saw real accurate depictions of the ratings, Andor would probably the viewership would be under the Acolyte.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about it. Just basing on the interest the after shows receive. That's what I use as a barometer to see how successful live action Star Wars shows are. And Andor really is probably where we see our smallest listenership. Our largest is definitely The Mandalorian, followed by Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, Ahsoka, Acolyte, and unfortunately dragging up the rear is Andor. Now, I predict there will be a turnaround in Season 2.
Do you?
Because, word of mouth about Andor has been pretty strong.
Okay.
And I also think Andor is a show that appeals to non-hardcore fans.
Yeah.
Because it's such a specific story about individuals going through rough times. It doesn't need to tie in to any big picture Star Wars thing. So I think that's a good place for, it's not bogged down heavily by lore. It's more specifically a story about individuals or an individual like Andor himself going through the rise of an oppressive government. And it was the Russian Revolution which really influenced Gilroy as he was creating the backbone for Andor. So he's basing it on a piece of history, and all of that stuff I think is very accessible to non-hardcore fans. And again, the word of mouth with Andor I think was pretty positive. I think more people are jumping on board with that show, and more people will pay attention to it in Season 2. I hope so. But to me, the numbers don't lie. And that's how I see the popularity of these shows based on our own statistics. Mandalorian is the top. Andor is the bottom. Acolyte is between Andor and Ahsoka. Very tight, neck and neck almost with Ahsoka.
I would put those analytics of our after shows, the podcast downloads, all that, I would put them up against the all these websites that claim to know what these streaming numbers are. Yeah. I think it's extraordinarily accurate. And so there you have it. And also every hardcore Star Wars fan needs the sort of the mediocre fan, the fan that's not totally plugged in, because it's a great barometer. And I have a buddy that I talk to who's loves Star Wars, but not like all of us. You know, he's not going to be listening to any after shows. And he's got some gripes with Acolyte, but he thinks it's far more accessible and more enjoyable than Ahsoka was.
Oh,
he
yeah.
thought, and this is a guy that's never watched a frame of the Clone Wars. He thought Ahsoka was boring. He got lost in it. He had no clue what was going on. I don't know. You know, in retrospect, I don't think that's good. On the other hand, he loved Andor. Had a good grasp of Rogue One, but wasn't, you know, sycophantic. He wasn't going around going, yeah, Melchi's in this. Melchi. Oh my God, it's Melchi.
The cult of Melchi.
Oh,
Weird.
Those people. Jeez. Relax. It's like, yeah, we know you saw Rogue One. We're all impressed that you saw Rogue One. Jeez.
That is the funniest thing I've heard.
The Melchi people. Okay, here's Steven. Steven says, how'd you like that Kelnaka lightsaber battle? I loved it. I thought it was great. We didn't really talk about that. But he says, I was expecting that Wookiee to force rip some arms out of some sockets. I love you guys. We love you too, Steven. That's very kind of you, the $20 super chat. Appreciate that very much. I really did, Jim. I love the, you know how I have mixed feelings about Wookiees as Jedi, but I'll tell you, I really liked that lightsaber battle, and yeah, I didn't expect any arms being ripped out of sockets because I knew that they were both going to survive. Kelnaka wasn't going to wipe the floor with Torben. Yeah. But Torben being pressed up against that wall, and we see where he got the scar with the eye and all that. That was pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, sure. Wookiees are known to pull people's arms out of their sockets, but that's not the easiest thing for a Wookiee to do to a Jedi. You know, maybe
right.
To some idiot in a cantina. Yeah, that's what a Wookiee does. But to a Jedi, it's not that easy. However, the ferocious nature of watching a Wookiee Jedi in battle, when Kelnaka appeared possessed by the witches, to me, it totally validated the placement of a Wookiee in this story. It wasn't just done on a whim. Oh, I'd like to see a Wookiee in this. No, he served a purpose. He presented an overpowering threat to the Jedi. And who's gonna beat down Jedi like that? Well, a Wookiee would. A Wookiee that's strong in the Force certainly would. So it's not just like it was just some random thing plucked out of the ether and dropped into the show. The presence of a Wookiee paid off and made sense and brought a terrific battle scene into this episode.
It was super cool, and I thought I thought the whole reveal in the cinematography in this instance, when and just the look on the faces of Saw and Torben when they realized that Kelnaka had arrived, because you hear the voice of Mother Coral, and she says you were unwise to bring him here or something like that, and Torben is like, oh, this again, you know, you're going to possess me. And she's like, not you. It actually reminded me a little bit of Ghostbusters, the way Zool was talking to the guys at the end of the original Ghostbusters movie. You know, this is almost played for laughs here, but you see the silhouette of Kelnaka, and the expression on Saul's face says it all. As he realizes, oh my God, Kelnaka, my worst nightmare is an evil Kelnaka.
That's just it. That's just it. So the Wookiee serves a purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that you enjoyed seeing a Wookiee Jedi in action based on all your anxieties coming in.
Look. I liked seeing the Wookiee kick ass. I think one of my problems with the show is that the Jedi tend to be a little milquetoast, a little weak. So, but I like seeing the Wookiee do what a Wookiee does, right? Which is kick some ass. And he did. What I wasn't looking forward to when I heard about Jedi Wookiee is seeing him sit around the Jedi Council and everybody pretend to understand him, you know. Like that was gonna annoy me. But kicking ass, I love that. I love that. That was cool.
Yeah. You felt the ferocious nature of the battle.
I did indeed. All right, last super chat here. Scott St. Louis says, so sad next week will be the last meeting of the Boston area Acolyte After Show watch party. What is BAAAWP?
Boston Acolyte After Show watch
okay.
party.
All right. Sorry.
Duh.
But we are RFR fans forever. Thanks, Jason and Jimmy. Well, thank you guys for that. And thanks for always being here to support the live stream. It's so much fun doing this each and every week. We're loving it.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And hey, guys, fear not. We only have one more week of Acolyte, but we're going to have Skeleton Crew. That's going to be showing up. And we're going to have Andor Season 2. Jim, do we have I can't remember. Do we have a confirmation on what we're going to see first? I think we're going to see Skeleton Crew first.
Yeah, toward the end of this year, November, December at the latest for Skeleton Crew. They've said it's going to come out around Christmas, but I've also heard it's going to drop in November and take us through to the end of the year.
So no Andor Season 2 until after the calendar year rolls over, until 2025. Right.
Yeah, I predict maybe a springtime thing. And also anticipating the announcement of where Star Wars animation is going next and what the next animated Star Wars series is going to be. I certainly hope they come up with something that's more than just a series of shorts, and they give us like actual fleshed out animated episodes. Now those things I'm cool with the half-hour running time.
Yeah.
Because they're cartoons. But, you know, with this live action Star Wars stuff, Lucasfilm really needs to get slapped up beside the head and realize that they better start creating episodes that are more in the hour range as opposed to these half-hour sitcom length episodes. Yeah. Because that sort of format does a disservice to Star Wars storytelling.
Agreed. Gonzi Merchant, just with a reminder that D23 in 1 month, maybe some new stuff from Skeleton Crew and Andor Season 2. And Jim, maybe the answer to your question about the future of Star Wars animation could be revealed D23 just 1 month after San Diego Comic-Con. I've not heard any rumors of San Diego Comic-Con featuring any big Star Wars reveals. There have been Star Wars days done at San Diego Comic-Con, but I feel like that's been a while since that's been the case. So I'm not expecting anything big out of SDCC, but D23, yeah, very much a possibility.
For sure, yeah. I hope they make some big splash announcements. Probably will announce another 3 films that we'll never see.
Right, yeah, right. Be careful what you wish for on those announcements. Do want to thank Tyler Page once again, as always, screening our calls. Look at him. He's there with Barry Harmon, another one of the Babu freaks. Yeah, so Tyler is squatting there with Barry because Tyler's in the middle of moving house. And I see the Wi-Fi, or I can only assume that the Wi-Fi is still not quite up to snuff. Is that right, Tyler?
Yeah, I blame Comcast for that, but what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
You do AT&T, maybe?
Maybe. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
Comcast is Xfinity, but yeah, well, those guys are letting us down. That's for sure. Hopefully that gets resolved soon enough.
Yeah. So
what do we miss, Tyler? What are people talking about?
The callers, I would say a lot of them are less than enthused with this episode, but still sticking around because of Star Wars. I thought one caller, Mario from Las Vegas, brought up a good point. We still need to see how Chimera meets May, and I think that might be, I don't know if that's going to be revealed in the next episode, but it's something that's outlying. We just We need that story. If there's a vergence out there, and Jedi are searching, are the Sith searching as well? So I think that's probably one of the most interesting calls.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about the vergence showing up on Brendok in this otherwise decimated system from this hyperspace collision. Is that what gave the Sith the impetus to manipulate the witches, which then brought forth these twins? I'm kind of curious about how those dominoes fall. I hope the writers have some idea. I'll say this, as much as I've been accused tonight of being a Acolyte hater, I'm not, and I would totally be open to a season 2. I don't want to. I need to rest, but as soon as I rest up, I'd be open to it if they don't satisfactorily wrap it all up, and I don't see how they can in one more episode. I just don't see how they can do it. So if that means we got to do another season, let's do another season, because
the power of 2.
The power of 2. How many? Program note, Jim, we're not going to be back next Wednesday at our usual time. That is my fault. I'm going on vacation. Going to Ocean Isle, North Carolina, going to the beach. And yes, I am dedicated enough that I would do an after show from my vacation spot. The thing I cannot guarantee is the Wi-Fi. I cannot guarantee. Every time I've been to the beach, it's been very spotty internet connection. And of course, this is Rebel Force Radio. We're quality broadcast here. We require high bandwidth. So I can't do it next week, but we will be back Monday. Yeah, Monday, July 22nd. And we will cover the season finale. We'll wait and see if that's actually the series finale. We'll cover the season finale on Monday, July 22nd.
Right.
It may not be the first word, but will be the final word.
Well, no weekly RFR next week, and no Acolyte After Show next week. But Jason's going on vacation and I'm not. So I'm pretty sure we'll have something to drop into the feed. Maybe on Tuesday night after the final episode is wrapped. I'll come up with something. So
come up with something.
Keep your eye on feed. It won't be an after show necessarily. But maybe there'll be an opportunity where some first blush reactions to the season finale can be recorded and sent down the line. So
parts of me will die with you, and I think it's gonna be the good parts. Don't wanna feel it all. Thick skin, big scars. Thought I was tethered to you. You cut it straight to the truth. Something like that.
I don't know that.
The power of 2.
Is that thing they played at the end?
That's
you
what
know
they
the
sing
lyrics?
at the end. I have the lyrics printed out. Right here.
Sad.
I got the lyrics.
God, is that sad?
Anyway.
Because, you know, it really bothers me because some of the finest soundtrack moments this show is delivered to us happened during the closing credits. And when it kicked in with this RB pop nonsense at the end of this show, I had to turn it off. I didn't even look at the credits.
It's rough.
Credit viewing is part of my fandom. Well, click. As soon as I heard that stuff, I'm like, oh my God, they're willowing us. Click. Didn't enough people at Lucasfilm lose their jobs because of Willow? Why are you copying anything?
It was a big tax write-off. That's what it was. They wrote it all off.
Yeah. What
wrote it all off.
Crap producing. Just
all right.
Crap.
Tyler, Barry, thanks guys. We'll see you in a week, in a day, or whatever it is. Anyway, we'll see you on July 22nd for the official RFR Acolyte After Show season finale. Thanks, fellas. All right, Jimmy Mac, final thoughts. Episode 7, Choice.
Choice. What a choice. What a choice it was to make this series. There were things I noticed that I thought were something I wanted to bring up. Every time they show that Jedi speeder bike, I always think of Edward Van Halen's Frankenstrat guitar. Does anybody else get this vibe? It's red with black and white stripes, just like Eddie's guitar was, his famous guitar. I always get those vibes when I see those speeder bikes. Maybe Eddie's guitar was an inspiration for the artist who came up with that. I don't know, but I'd like to think so. Does anybody else know? Forget it. That's just me. Hey, some of the effects in this episode were a little sketchy. Specifically when Soul reached the Coven mountain lair and he climbed the rock face, they did a wide shot of that, and it looked like this black blob made with one of those fat Sharpie pens climbing up. Come on, ILM. Really? They must be farming some of this stuff out to boutique effects houses. But wow, $180 million? Yikes. What else do I got in these crazy notes? This mess of notes I have in front of me. May destroyed the gate/elevator controls and locked everyone in the mountain fortress. So if she locked everyone in, why does she need to go confront OSHA? Why did she have to do that? If she knew everyone was locked in, why did she have to go and get in OSHA's face and say, I'm going to kill you if you try to leave? Is she locked in? Well, I came to a resolution. It's because it's obvious that she and OSHA knew workarounds as far as the security of that mountain basement. They knew ways to get in and ways to get out without anyone knowing. And episode 3 begins with both girls hanging around the forest, and Coral finds them, and she's livid because the girls snuck out. So May knows OSHA knows other ways to get in and out of that mountain fortress beyond that elevator gate. So that satisfied me when I came to that conclusion, because I couldn't understand, if she destroyed the controls to get in and out, why does she have to confront OSHA and threaten OSHA's life if she tries leaving when she can't leave? Well, it's because they knew other ways around. Hey, something we didn't talk about. Mother A reveals to the Jedi she has foreseen the downfall of the Jedi Order. So she had a Force vision that the Jedi's days are numbered. They still got another 100 years out of their existence. So she was seeing far into the future, but there's no debating her. She was right. She was foreseeing the downfall of the Jedi. Master Saul, he's the one carrying around heavy guilt over what had happened more than any other Jedi. Indara seems very fine with coldly covering up everything. Kelnaka and Torben were possessed, so what they did was really out of their control. But Soul is really going through a lot of anguish, and you can see this after he kills Mother A, and Coral brings the fight to him, and she beats him down, and he doesn't retaliate because he knows he effed up and doesn't want to continue his role in murdering more of the witches. So he's dealing with the heaviest guilt out of all of them. I don't think that Torben was really feeling guilt. I think he was just looking for an out because the witches got into his head and he couldn't shake them out. Still, so many unresolved things in the series that need to be wrapped up next week. OSHA put the helmet on. Does she fall to the dark side? We'll have to wait and see. Will Osha hook up with Chimere? We'll have to wait and see. Who is Chimere? Master or the apprentice? This needs to be defined. How does Chimere tie in to the witches' story and the death of the witches? How did he meet May? All of that stuff. That needs to be revealed. Will Saul turn himself over to the Jedi Council? Will he even get the chance? I predict no, but we'll have to wait and see. How will this get resolved so the Council and the Jedi remain ignorant about the Sith existing? There has to be the cover-up. May and Osha are the same. What impact will that have? Will they morph into one? We'll have to wait and see next week. Hopefully, we'll get a satisfying and fulfilling conclusion to the story they've laid out in front of us for the past month and a half. Nuke Gunrain, not in this episode.
All right. I was just about to reply to Tom here on the chat. He says, I think North Carolina beaches have a ton of megalodon fossil teeth. I got one of those sifters. You ever done that, Jim? You ever look for shark teeth on the beach with the little sifter? It's like you're mining for...
No, I'm too busy picking them out of my leg.
For gold.
You're swimming in the wrong place.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us this week. As always, we appreciate it. Great times here on the RFR After Show. Of course, Acolyte is the subject du jour. We'll be back later this week with an all-new weekly Rebel Force Radio podcast. So don't forget, get that on the feed. You can check that out. Won't tell you what we got going on, but it's going to be fun this week, so make sure you check that out. And then, as I say, as we said earlier, next week, not an RFR proper show, but you never know. I mean, if Mac and I can hook up a little bit, even if the Wi-Fi is a little spotty, maybe we'll get... I'm committing to watching Acolyte, even on vacay. I can't think of anything better than to chill out on the balcony, beachfront, watching some Star Wars on the old iPad, the Disney Plus. Yeah. We might be able to get some first blush reactions from that and get that out to you guys, and then we'll do a proper after show with call-ins and all that stuff on great. Monday the 22nd. Yeah, we can work that out. Easy.
Oh, good.
Well, that'll do it for us. Thanks again to Tyler Page, also Barry Harmon, for giving Tyler some place to squat at as he awaits his Wi-Fi or his internet connection at his new pad. But especially thanks to you all for joining us, listening to the show, chatting, calling us up. Sorry we didn't get to all of the calls this week, but maybe we'll get you next week. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.